Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town. All right, Tyler Gould, we are into part 2 of your friend, my new friend, Carlos De Osambela. As we look at our conversation that we had with Carlos, what do you want to highlight for our listeners as we get into part 2?
You know, there's so many things that, one of the things that I love that he talked about is training harder than we fight. And he has this whole, he's a military guy. So he talks about how if we train better now, when we're in the middle of it, we're not going to be surprised by the things that we're faced with. I really love that. When he was talking about that, I was thinking about my mental health, my spiritual well-being, my physical well-being, all these things that I could be better at. So I love that. And Mike, I loved when he talks about sticking to the pros. I thought that was a great piece of advice too, that he learned from some senior missionaries in one of the areas that he was deployed. Yeah.
Pros: prayer, repentance, obedience, service. And being brilliant in those basics, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, love that.
I love the conversation that we had about regrets.
Yeah.
I think that really helped me. You can actually, as you're listening, you can probably hear the wheels in my brain turning and paradigms are shifting there. I just think the idea too, what he shares, that struggle reveals our actual capacity.
Yeah. I have wrote that down, and
we're all walking around 40 percenters, and it's not till you hit the struggle or the adversity that you tap into that 41%.
Yeah. And, he has a really interesting take on hinge moments, and I loved it. I thought it was really good. He said, you can never get enough of what you don't need. And, and this idea of make sure that you're choosing the best thing. And I thought that was powerful. It was emotional. I thought it was a great moment,
Yeah. For our listeners that are interested in deeper dive, see what I did there?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Rescue, deeper dive. Anyways, for those that are interested, show notes are robust for these 2 episodes. Lots of different references, lots of things. Free solo, hope gap, extreme ownership comes up again, right?
Yeah.
That was a book giveaway a couple of episodes ago. So can't hurt me. Lots of different things come up in our conversation with Carlos. But again, courage on display. I just really hope that we're honest with ourselves as we're listening to Carlos, that we pull out a piece of paper, right? Maybe we find some time to separate ourselves out a little bit so that we can take some inventory. Carlos is doing hard work, and he's doing it right in front of us.
Yeah.
Right in front of us. So, Carlos, you keep going, brother. We're so appreciative for the time. We're so appreciative for letting us in on your current struggle, letting us in on everything that is involved in that struggle. I really hope that we can find those good hinges, right? Find those great hinges that we can continue to express appreciation. Lots of George Bailey in this episode, and it's only fitting, right? As we're coming up on the most wonderful time of the year. Carlos is a big fan. We're a big fan, and we see a lot of George Bailey.
Yeah.
In our friend Carlos. So, Carlos's family, thank you so much. To our listeners, enjoy part 2 of The Richest Men in Town with our friend Carlos D Osambela.
I love the analogy you guys use about tiny hinges. And one of the things that I'd love to share with a dude that might be out there right now, maybe on that track is there's different qualities of hinges. I kind of nerded out with this concept of the hinges, and there's different qualities, right? I never planned to be 39 years old in this position. I actually, matter of fact, once we hit 20 years, I was like, we're set, we're good to go. Like I can now just worry about everything else in my life, right? Because this is cool. I'm good. So I didn't plan this. What I did was subtly and incrementally, I kept choosing. The intentions were always okay, right? Like I never intended to lose everything, right? But I kept choosing good, right? And mediocrity just leads to, you're not getting where you're supposed to go, right? And so I would caution guys out there to take inventory and figure out, hey, dude, that like, am I choosing the best possible? Every once in a while, I got to choose a best, because if I go good too long, good's not good enough, right?
Good is the enemy of great.
Absolutely. And so, and there was another, a really good buddy of mine. He put out there, I think it was, what was the name? I'll get you the name of the guy, but, he said something along the lines of it's Robert Brault. He's like a freelance writer or something. He's like, we're kept from our goals, not by obstacles, but by a clear path to lesser goals. I had good intentions. I wanted to do good things, right? But they were lesser. Now that I'm taking inventory, right, I realized like these were lesser goals. Like, let me go to Guam to go do my job and, get after it and be the best at what I do and leave my family for 2 years, right? The intentions were good. I wanted to go help people, and hey, Wendy, it's cool. You stay back, you open up a restaurant, you do your thing, and we got this. That's hey, those are all good intentions. Those are all good things, right? Dude, came crashing down because we were using bum equipment. Dude, those are all good hinges. We needed the best. When you separate a family for that long, you better be working with the best possible hinges. And so, and I'm throwing a lot of at this this hinge.
I love
I love that idea of working with bum equipment.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, careful. You're building a life. And if you're building a life with inadequate equipment or poor standards, and you're going to throw the weight of a family on that.
And it's very easy to confuse. It's very easy to confuse good for good enough, right?
And I think too, there's an interesting, Mike. We have all kinds of analogies, right? We could throw at things, right? We can talk about foundations and everything else, but I think that we can establish something on a good foundation. But as we're building, if we're not choosing the right equipment, right, it's eventually something's going to falter somewhere. And I think I appreciate that, the honesty in that, Carlos. I think that, as you're talking about that, I'm literally like thinking about, oh gosh, yeah, like there's a lot of times where there's a good decision right in front of you, and it's good. Everything about it is good.
What's sometimes the best thing about it, the thing that sells us on it, is that it's probably also just so happens to be pretty convenient.
Yeah, 100%. Right.
9 times out of 10, the best option is the most inconvenient option. It's the hard.
I agree. 100%.
That's
the good thing is the easy thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Swimming upstream and doing those hard things. But I think too, did we take, as you look back and kind of do this autopsy on this, Carlos, did you lose sight of the destination?
Oh,
as these goods presented themselves, and maybe the greats were kind of hidden, or the great was the inconvenient thing, or the good, better, best was hidden from you. Did we take our eyes off of our destination?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the most enlightening books, I'm going to throw a bunch of books out there tonight, but Extreme Ownership.
Oh
It
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
him.
You're not the first.
Shout out to
Yeah,
Jocko, right? Yeah.
yeah, Jocko. And Leaf David. So I absolutely lost sight, and I mean, it was there, but you know, your focus is here, you know, and so it was in my peripherals. You know, I had it there. It meant something to me. It was important to me. But I lost sight, and I put my focus into the thick of thin things, and I lost sight of what mattered most, and I allowed myself to put way too much energy into the things that that I thought were you know, were I don't know, man. Complacency is so dangerous when it comes to things like when there's other people involved, right? Complacency is so dangerous because you're not just responsible for your own, you know, what's going through your mind and what you're going through. You're responsible for what you're putting somebody else through also. Yeah, absolutely, I lost sight.
But what a challenging situation, right? To be looking back, and here you're in a spot now where you're having to hit a reset button, and you look back and you don't see a fatal flaw. You see a bunch of goods, not
Great.
Yeah, well, there couldn't have been. So I'll go back to. I'm going to go ahead and ask the questions you guys are supposed to be asking. So when I got the invite to the richest men in town, how did I feel?
How'd you feel?
How'd you feel? So right off the bat, I was like, no way. Like, yes, like it's like getting invited to a TED talk, right? It's like, dude, yes, like I've made it. And you know, and I was like, this is awesome, right? And then right away it was like, but wait, you know, like I'm in the middle of bankruptcy, dude. Like the first thing I did was try to disqualify myself. I was like, hey, Tyler, real quick, dude, before Mike comes on, let me tell you what's going on. Like, richest men in town, great, awesome. Call me in like a year, man. When I've kind of restored, you know, some of these riches that people, you know. So I felt like I was completely unqualified. And a lot of people say that. But most of the conversations you're having, and I don't know all the people that have been on the show, and I haven't heard all the episodes, but most of the stories that we listen to on podcasts and on different platforms, it's about people that have overcome and gone through stuff. You know, they've gone through hell and they kept going and they made it on the other side, and they figured it out, or they're figuring it out and they're recovering or something like that. Right. I'm in the middle of bankruptcy. Like I am literally in it. Right. And so I'm like, dude, are you like, I'm not, I was the richest man in town. Absolutely. I felt like it and other people saw it and you know, and that's why my first question to Tyler was like, dude, what was the motivation behind the invitation, dude? Like, why me? Right. And he's like, well, your family, man, you got great kids, you know, and I'm like, that was like a little stab, you know, and he didn't mean anything by it. But that was my feeling is, dude, I'm not supposed to be on this show right now. Let me be on this show in 6 months to a year when I can tell you, hey, this is what I went through, guys. And man, it was rough, but I learned this, and this is how I got where I am, which is in a more, you know, wealthy situation.
You know, Carlos, there is some real value in being able to sit back and listen to someone tell you how they climbed the mountain, right? I think there's value in that. I think there's even more value to be having someone tell you where the next step on the mountain is going to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And honestly, I appreciate your humility and I appreciate your situation. And I would say that they're like right now, this podcast is going to be downloaded by a lot of people, right? And they're going to listen to it.
They have not a clue, dude. they're like, what?
And there's going to be a lot of people that are listening to it that are in the exact same situation that you're in right now. But they may not have any kind of clarity. And maybe they're thinking, how do you even move past this? Right. I'm sure at some point you had that thought, right?
Or even better, they're 10 steps behind you.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want that guy.
And they can change.
Yeah, I want that guy.
Right? They can hear you.
Tyler, that was a great way to kind of make me feel better about being on the show. So have you got, one of my favorite movies out there right now? It's called Free Solo. Have you seen it?
Oh, yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Dude, so that is a guy that's in it.
Yeah,
he's literally showing you what the next step is, and you're watching it. Think about talking to I can't remember his name right now, but think about talking to him after he'd already done it. That's cool.
Yeah. Right.
So I guess you thank you, Tyler, for making me because I guess you're right. Yeah. Hey guys, if I don't get this step right, I'm going to fall 10,000 feet. That's how I feel right now. Right.
But let me tell you this too. The show's called Richest Men in Town, right? We love ourselves some George Bailey, but we don't just love George Bailey on the bridge at the end. We love George Bailey when he's frantically searching for $8,000, right? Yeah. And I've seen the movie. How many times we've seen that movie? And I'm watching his world fall apart, knowing that there will be a time when he's on the bridge and he wants to live again, and everything's coming back, right? And I'm telling you right now, Carlos, when I come up on $100 bill and it's wadded up and it's muddy on the street, it's still $100 bill. Yeah, man. Right? When we know our worth, and we're going in it, we're in the middle of affliction, right? We're in the refiner's fire, whether other people's actions or our own actions put us there. It's still a story worth telling, and it's a story worth listening to, because in the end, it's going to be okay. Right.
That one of the things that tripped me out about George Bailey on the bridge, and they did a good job of it was like in the 40s or something when it come out. Yeah. And they made it look so like he's going to die if he jumps off that bridge.
This is coming from a rescue swimmer, right? I mean, come on.
Well, no,
come on. Clarence did a darn good job diving.
I know what his favorite scene is.
But dude.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Go.
Then what does he do though? You know what I'm saying? Like you're thinking, man, this guy, he's gonna die. What do you? And then he jumps in anyway. He just does it differently.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he approaches it differently. And so I'm hoping that I approach this differently, because if I'm being as transparent as I'll allow myself to be, I'm on that bridge every day, bro. Every day I'm on that bridge. Knowing everything that I know, because that's the scary part is being a member of the church, having been blessed with the knowledge that I have and the testimony I have, dude, that only makes it harder because I know better, right? I know I have the weight of that responsibility of knowing better. And then, but if the weight, if the weight's too much, it almost doesn't matter sometimes. And so yeah, it's a tough thing, but I'm gritting it out, and every day I have to pick a reason to grit it out, and sometimes it's different reasons. Ironically, one of the coolest things that I ever learned from somebody, Sister Benson, I don't remember her first name. I wish I did. She's awesome. The Bensons are a great family here in Central PA. I think they moved away, but she was a marriage counselor. And she said, sometimes we're in a relationship. Wendy and I we would always go to these things. We'd always go. That's the irony of a lot of the things is we were all about it, man. We were all in. We'd go to these things. We weren't always having problems either. Sometimes we just go. And she said, as couples, we'll go out there and we'll say, well, you shouldn't stay together for the kids. That's not the right reason. Or you shouldn't stay together just because you can't afford to be apart, or you shouldn't stay together because this or that. And she said, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what reason you used, as long as you're together at the end of it, dude, it was the right reason, right? It was the right reason. So I think that, I'm kind of digging my own hole when I talk about these things that I know, because it's tough. It's gut wrenching, man. It's the biggest heartache of my life. But I have every day I find a reason, right? Whether it's Sam, it's been Sam a lot, whether it's Sebastian, because one thing that I can tell you is, and I think you guys have talked about this before. Our children are watching. We're teaching them, no matter what we're doing, we're teaching them, whether it's good or bad, we're teaching them. And there's another, this is kind of a downer, but there's another really good reference I'm going to give. There's a movie out there called Hope Gap. It's pretty slow. It's not for everybody, but it's called Hope Gap. And the son is talking to his mother because his mother is just like done, and he's worried about her. And he's like, Mom, like, I'm worried about you. Because he had just kind of talked her off like a ledge or something like that. And he's like, Mom, I need to know you're like ahead of me on this journey. And I need to know that it's worth pursuing and continuing on this journey. And if at some point you give up, I'm going to know that there's no point, because, but if you call back and say, hey, hey, keep coming, dude. I got you. You're good. No matter how bad it gets, and we're lucky enough to have an iron rod to kind of help us along the way. But dude, it's just it's a good flick. But I'm right now, I'm a sponge during this reset, and I'm trying to take in whatever I can so I can give myself every excuse to grit it out and get through it.
All right, Carlos, you and Iron Rod, I got to share this quote, right? This morning at the gym, I'm listening to Sister Susan Porter from General Conference. She's the first counselor in the primary general presidency. She's talking about 1 Nephi chapter 8, right? Tree of life and God's love. And she says this. Let me see if I can find it here. Sometimes we mistakenly think that we can feel God's love only after we have followed the iron rod and partaken of the fruit. God's love, however, not only is received by those who come to the tree, but is the very power that motivates us to seek after that tree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not just a matter of when I get to this destination, I'm going to feel God's love. It's in where you're at. It's in that. And that's what motivates us to continue on. Right?
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah, that's great. So I call those tender mercies often.
Yeah.
I feel them and I'll tell you what, I don't remember the day that you called me, Tyler, to extend the invitation. What I do remember about that day, it was later in the day. And I was having a bad night. It was rough. And my old bishop calls me. He's like, "Hey man, you want to be on this show?" And I'm like, this is how I'm going to get through tonight. Right. Somebody thinks I'm rich. And that's the other thing too, is, so I get the invitation. I'm like, I'm hyped about it. And, I get a good night's rest. And, I'm next day, I'm like, and I go, and I let Wendy know. I'm like, hey, I don't know if I should go on this show, everything that's going on right now, blah, blah, blah. She's like, dude, first of all, Again, she's like, stop. She's always stop. Like, isn't it pretty cool that whatever we did there must have been a lot of good in it, because there's people out there that think you're rich, dude. It's for a reason, right? So there was a lot of good that came of this. And let's stop. Let's be a little bit more. You guys talk about all the time. We're our biggest critics, right? Mm-hmm. And if I just listen to the rich people around me, maybe I'd recognize a little bit more that, hey man, you still got it. You're taking a fall, you're taking a cut, but you stay in the game. So
I got to tell you though, I really think it's interesting because first of all, you've been on my mind for a while. Just kind of watching the adventures in Guam, and I've been thinking about you and your family a lot, and so you were on the short list for a while to be here. But I think that given your current circumstance, I really just this conversation, I feel like there's so much more richness that we've been able to discuss today, given your current circumstance. Now that sounds crazy, right? It sounds
it doesn't
counterintuitive, but I really believe, like we talked about this the other night, Carlos, with you, Mike, and I. Sometimes we go through things and they're terrible, right? We don't want to experience them, but we go through them. And I really kind of feel like there's this idea of honoring that pain to a certain degree, right? We go through something, and if we choose not to learn from that experience, dude, right, then we're destined to run right back into that thing again. And to me, it's inspiring to sit and talk. And I'm grateful that you're willing to have this conversation in the middle of it, because, we're sort of saying, hey, you're saying, hey, there's this terrible thing that's going on, but to the best of my ability, I'm trying to claw my way to a different place. And that to me is, and I'll say it again, you use the what was the solo climb movie, right?
Free Solo,
Free Solo. You use that. I mean, I think it's great to listen to the guy who's going to stand up in front of the auditorium and tell him I climbed Mount Everest. But man, if I could be right there with the guy that's climbing Mount Everest and show me how to do it, that's a different thing altogether.
I mean, it was El Capitan, but yeah. No, I'm kidding.
But I am so. But I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The commitment to that. I really do. I think that there's way more depth in our conversation tonight because of where you're at now.
So I think that one of the reasons that we feel that way, it made sense as you said it, as you were, sometimes we got to zoom out, and it's very hard to do that because we're so, especially when we're in danger. We focus on that immediate danger.
Yeah.
That's how we're wired. So it's really hard to you're too scared to move back because you want to focus in on the danger. But it makes a lot of sense because I think that the reason we're so captivated by the struggle is because that is the only time that we are pressured enough to. There's this quote, Archaeolus is an old Greek writer, philosopher, whatever.
He's my favorite one, actually.
Yeah, dude. I love it. So we don't, under pressure, we don't rise to the occasion. We fall to our level of training. There was a scene.
I think the Navy taught you more than just one thing.
Yeah,
no,
man, I mean, come on. Yeah, seriously.
So there was this. I remember there was a. I was not a swimmer when I went to rescue swimmer school. I was the guy that learned to swim because my stepdad threw me in the middle of a pool and I had to figure it out. And that's the kind of swimming I did. Community pool, like fun swimming. I was never, all the dudes next to me were like, there was a collegiate swimmer. There was all high school, like, swim captains and all this stuff. Right. I was not a very confident swimmer when I went. But one thing I learned, right. One of the things that we do there that I hated the most, and people thought that I loved it because of the mindset that I ended up having to have just to get through it. They're called underwaters. And so we get wrecked in the pool for a couple hours. And then once we're nice and tired, we do these underwaters where we have to cross from one end to the other. And they got a current going. So there's a current. Of course. And yeah.
Diabolic. Who designs this stuff?
Yeah.
Dr. Evil.
So they got the currents on full blast, and they're like, okay, you're going to, on the whistle blast, you're going to go across, you're going to come up 0 times. You're going to go underwater this whole time. And you're like, dude. And I remember, we do it. One time I was so like, there was so much adrenaline and just the fear, honestly. And I knew it was coming. I knew he was about to say it. I'm like, dang it. Cause they line you up on a black line. They're like, all right, line up. And we know what's coming. And I knew immediately, like, you kind of amped up and then it happens. And then you don't have enough time to really get your breathing right. As soon as I hit the water, have you guys ever been underwater long enough for you to chicken neck? Like you feel, I don't know if you've ever been underwater long. Yeah. If you surf, you've maybe done that.
Yeah.
So, the minute I went underwater, I started chicken necking. The minute I went underwater, this is like the dude that was done at 2 miles, right? The minute I went underwater, I was done. I was like, dude, I'm coming up and I'm going to fail and they're going to kick me out. They're going to pull me out of the water and I'm done with this school. I made it across just fine, right? This is why we're so fascinated by struggle, is because it is where we find our actual capacity. One of the things that we talked about all the time in training was we're operating at like 40% all the time. SEALs will talk about it a ton. EOD, all these guys, we're all listening to the same PowerPoint. We're at 40% of our capacity almost all the time. Right. And so imagine what you can do.
That's scary.
Yeah, dude, right. Imagine what you can do but you can't tap into that 41 until you reach that level of pressure. Right. And remember, it's counterintuitive. Our brain is like, yo, when we get to like 20, our brain's like, yo, man, we're good. Right. We got a roof, we got food, we're good. So to get to 41, you've got to be willing to take yourself there. Right. Or you go to rescue swimmer school and they make you go there. Right.
They contrive these currents and these crazy conditions and
that was a good time.
They unlock it. Right.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, I learned a heck of a lot from that place.
So when you surface after that, in that moment, when you touch the other side and you pop up, what are you feeling?
You don't.
Do you feel it? Do you feel it unlocked in you?
No,
like
you don't.
What just happened?
At least, you feel it while you're in it. I'm lying. So you do feel it while you're in it. Once you're past it, they already have you so under pressure that the minute you're coming up, you're already doing something else. So you're not thinking afterward. You're not like, oh, I did it. Yeah. No, you don't have time to celebrate anything.
No ribbons or trophies or
or
cupcakes.
Participation ribbons all around. Participation ribbons for all my friends. So while you're under there, when you're in it, you're like, oh, dude, I had enough. Like I had more. Are you kidding me? Like that's one of the things I wondered about your buddy. What was he doing at mile 18? He thought he was done 16 miles ago. What was he doing at 18? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to dissect so that I can let's repeat that. Let's keep doing that, So I think that's why we're fascinated by the struggle. And that's why right now I am trying to take as much inventory as possible. That's what I think is the magic in us having these conversations, writing them down and taking some action on them, is we get to take an inventory and then we can assess our actual capacities based on not just what we can do, but what we can learn from our friends and apply to whatever that hard thing is.
Well, and I think the trick too is that we, in the middle of it, we're introspective, we're thoughtful, we're looking at the end goal. We have this idea of, okay, I want to persevere through this and come out a better version of myself. And then to Mike's point, right, at the end of it, I think that's the hard part, right? To come out on the other side and then be committed to that process and allow it to continue.
Yeah, because it almost reminds me, Tyler, of those questions of your best self.
Yeah.
Right. When you lay it out like that, and all of a sudden you crush anything you thought you were capable of doing, in your mind, I would think you're walking away with a different definition of you, a different definition of what your best self actually is capable of.
And I think that we immediately have to slap a new bar on it and say, now I got to go a step further. Right.
And this takes me to you guys threw out a question out there. You were talking to a good dude, Brian Beverly.
Yeah.
Ranger, right?
Yep.
And you were like, are leaders born? Are they made? And I was listening to this on one of my commutes, and I was like, dude, that's easy, man. They're made. There's no question. They're made. So yes, obviously we can be born. It's have you guys listened to that talk in the recent general conference? It's called The Slope.
Oh yeah.
Something about the slope, right?
Oh yeah.
You might be born with a different integer.
Absolutely. Right.
But dude, you will not rise and meet that potential that you actually have unless you are made to be that. Only leaders go to heaven, dude. Only winners. And I'm not saying you're going to win all the time, because part of the formula is failure, but they're absolutely made. And you know when they're made? They're made when they're pressured to perform beyond that 40%, when they're put under uncomfortable amounts of pain, pressure, and that could be in any form. It could be a broken marriage, which is, dude, it's like an amputation. I'll be honest with you. Hope Gap describes it as a death. I love the way she was so graphic about it. She was just real. She was real about it. I forgot her name, the actress. She was really good. Again, it's a slow movie, but I obviously had a vested interest in it. And that's when whether it's $8,000 that were lost, and you think everything's, you go back to that and you're like, this dude was tripping over $8,000. That's what this whole movie was about.
It was
no, I know. I'm just saying, like, it's just like it's funny that the reason that movie was made was for us to insert and realize, dude, like, what did he do? He freaked out so much. He got so overwhelmed that he took himself, he like inadvertently took himself out of that life just to get so desperate about being away from that life to go right back into it. And then what did he do when he got back? Note that was one of my favorite parts. I loved it. This is the kind of person that I've created in my mind. Is I will go back, and what did he do? He was like grateful for every crappy thing in his life.
Loved it.
Every crappy.
Breezy house is amazing. I'm going to jail. Merry Christmas. I bet that's a warrant for my arrest. How amazing. On the stairwell.
Yeah.
The newel post.
Dude, I love it because, insert Mike, insert Tyler, insert Carlos.
Yeah.
And realize, like, dude, take inventory and realize like, this is just part of the process, you know, and I shouldn't use the word, Wendy does not like the word hate, but there's a lot of, I'll be honest with you guys, there's a lot of hate in my heart for some of these things that are going on. And she says, everything is for a reason, or everything has purpose, or something like that. And I hated to hear it. It was like, no, there's no reason for this. This just sucks. Right. And you know what? I've probably said this 1 or 1,000 times in my marriage. She was right. She was right. There is something, and kind of, Tyler, what you were getting at. If I so choose, I can honor this with becoming, I wouldn't recommend this book just because it's rough. It's from a SEAL, and he's just, you know, it can't hurt me. And he talks about a calloused mind, right? And oh man, if anything will callous your mind more than, you know, it's losing everything. And that's the crazy thing is, George Bailey didn't even lose everything.
Yeah.
He had the most important things right there. What was his wife doing the whole time? She was looking for him the whole time. Not only was she doing that, she was multitasking and gathering the community, right? That's huge standard, you know, wife material right there, you know?
Let me ask you this question, Carlos. I'm curious, given your current situation, where you stand today and all the things that you're dealing with, what do you hope for?
Oh man. What do I hope for? So I hope that that I can be, what do we do as parents but to think about their well-being, right? And so what I hope is that, and this is what Wendy told me on one of those dark days, and she said, you need to be around to help our kids when they go, because the thing with kids is their problems grow. You know, it used to be, oh, Mike doesn't like me, or Anna doesn't, you know, or I don't have enough friends, or they stole my pencil box, right? With them grows their problems, right? And one day, you know, my daughter's married now, right? One day they might have a problem that only I can help them with because I went through this, right? And yes, Wendy's gone through this too, but every child deserves a mother and a father, because mom is going to give you probably 90% of it, but there's 10% that I got, that's all me. But I'm only going to be able to give it to you if I can really feel it, right? I mean, that is the entire premise of the plan of salvation, right? That's the reason we can be made whole, is because Christ felt there's not one thing he missed out on, every pore, right? Sometimes that's what I go back to, is I take myself back to that and say, every pore, man, like what kind of, that's the kind of pain I can't fathom. Right. So I think that my hope is that, that she's right, that Wendy's right. And that, there is a time where I can help either one of my children or a brother, or anyone, with what I've been through. That's the hope. And in doing that, right. In doing that, I hope to close the gap of my biggest fear, which is that gap between who I am and who I was supposed to be. Because God, there's a divine potential, right? And that's my fear, is how big is that gap? I know it's huge right now. By turning outward and you know, gathering as much good equipment as I can, I hope that I can help other people, which will in turn hopefully close that gap, right? And I'll learn something. That's what I hope.
I love that. Thank you.
So 84 episodes ago, Mike Freeman walked into the first episode of The Richest Men in Town with some preconceived notions. And over the 84 episodes, some of those notions have been torn down. Let me tell you one that is in the process of being looked at and reviewed. I used to think that regret was the enemy. I used to think that my goal was to live a life without regret. I'm starting to rethink that premise. What are you learning right now, Carlos, about regret and the purpose of regret in life?
Dude, as young people would say, that's fire, man. Okay, so
and brimstone, whose flames ascendeth up forever and ever.
Yeah.
That was the old Mike Freeman. That's what I used to think regret was.
I don't even think that we said the word regret yet, and my life is riddled with it. So I love that you brought that up. So you said what will I say it one more time?
Yeah. So what do you see the purpose of regret being in your life, or what's your stance on regrets in life?
So, yeah, I've never, I think it's silly. I know it's well-meaning, but I think it's silly to try to set out and live a life without regrets, because then you have to be numb to some of the dumb things that you're going to do. And I think there's regret has purpose. Number one, it tells you that it reminds you who you are, because if you're not feeling bad all the time, one thing I notice about Tyler all the time, he's always talking about how terrible he is at everything. I'm so selfish. I'm so this, I'm so that. I'm like, dude, you were my bishop. Get out of here. I think that's healthy, to feel a godly sorrow. That is what reminds me that I am his son. It reminds me who I am. And heaven help me, that is what keeps me going sometimes, is that regret and that godly sorrow. I don't hope to live my life, even moving forward, even having learned from a ton of regret. I don't hope to live my life without further regret. I don't hope to, I'm not setting out to have more, but I don't hope to live my life without further regret. I hope to, number one, I hope not to have the same regrets repeated. But I hope to be able to grow and become more disciplined as I experience the consequence of those decisions. And I choose better, and God help me, best in more cases than not. So I definitely, I have 1,000,001 regrets. But they've all brought me here, I think one of the most powerful things that you said, and I don't remember the reference, I don't know if it was you, Tyler, or if it was Mike, but you guys said
really
something
powerful. I'll claim it.
Yeah, maybe
that was probably Mike.
It was something about like, I can't remove the pain, because if I remove the pain, then I remove everything else. And I think it was the episode where you talked about that horrific accident with the dad killing his son in an accident, pulling out of the garage. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't, I might be mixing up episodes, but I just remember the notion of, I can't take and insert regret instead of pain. I can't take your pain away, and not also take away all that you've gained from that. And guess what? And this is my mantra. My favorite calling was being the young men's president. That was the best time of my life. And what I would always tell these guys is, dude, we're so busy being polite about how we go about training for what we're doing. And I know this sounds dramatic, but I think guys like Kiefer will appreciate stuff like this. And I don't even know that guy, but I feel like I do because he's so locked in. If you guys could introduce me, that'd be great. So he's in Florida, right? He's on the Sixth Coast. Yeah. If you guys realize the war that we're in right now, we're not messing around, and the enemy is not polite. There's no rules on that side. In the military, we call it proportional force. He doesn't care about rules, right? And so if we don't train, one thing we do in the U.S. military that makes us, better than everybody else, at least that's the thought is, and the hope. Otherwise, I better start learning Mandarin or Cantonese or something. Is we train a lot harder than we fight. I think you guys were laughing off, and maybe I missed it, but Brian Beverly was talking to you guys about a training event, and you guys were like, "Yeah, right." I'm willing to bet he might have been serious. Like it was because what? We do crazy stuff in training because what? When we get to the fight, it's not a big deal. We've already done way crazier than this, right? We're going to train a lot harder than we fight. We need to be doing that in the real war, which is, you've talked about it. I loved and I really appreciated your teachable moment about you threw out all those numbers and facts about suicide awareness and all that stuff, right? That's a fight. Are you kidding me? That's a second leading cause of death. Dude, that is a fight, right? The detachment that we were talking about earlier, that's going on all over the place. You guys, there was one episode where you guys have talked about Paul Harvey. Dude, I was one of those old dudes that was like, dude, I love that guy.
You knew who Paul Harvey was? You're the one guy.
That's the guy. Dude, tell me I think maybe quarterly, I don't know, monthly, weekly, we should listen to If I Were the Devil, right? That is a real war that's going on right. This guy was saying that in 1960. It's happening real world right now. It's happening in my home, guys.
Yeah.
Right? Dude, when I'm telling you, we got to stop being polite about how we train our children. Dude, my poor kid and my kids, dude, man, it didn't come with being polite. I'm not always polite to my kids because I love them too much to do it. Courageous parenting is a talk that was given. I don't know when, but he talks about being intimidated by your children. We don't got time for that, guys. We don't got time for that because there's real things going on out there that you have zero control over, and they're hitting your kids. And if you haven't trained them, Jordan Peterson talks about it all the time. He talks about strengthening our children so they can be self-sufficient. You don't want to coddle them, dude.
The stakes are too high.
I love that idea of
and the
training.
enemy doesn't care.
Yeah. I love that idea of training harder than we fight. I think that, and I'm going to forego the exercise of asking what that looks like, because I think it's good for all of us to sort of take our own personal, I have thoughts as you're saying that, like, spirituality, emotionally, physically, like all of these things are coming into my mind, like how I personally need to step up my own training. You know what I mean? Like I just love that idea, Carlos.
When I think too, Tyler, it's not a future war.
Right.
No.
Right.
It's now, right? And your home is the target. And even better, he wants Mike Freeman at 46 more than he wanted him at 17 because I got people attached to me.
Not only that, hey, can I do, you're right on, Mike. And let me tell you that I have a theory that how many members are there, or how many, let's just make it even more broader. Every God-fearing person out there is a target, right? There's so many people out there that the adversary doesn't even have to worry about because they're doing just fine on their own. So when you say that my family and my home is a target, that is absolutely real. he's focused in on, who's he focused in on? The stake presidents, the bishops, that's who he's focused in on. He's focused in on, and he's focused in on all of us.
Well, and if I can take it back to that power of habit, the very thing that he can destroy people with habit. And once those habits are in place, he reallocates his forces somewhere else.
Yeah.
And the very thing that we can use to safeguard ourselves are righteous habits, right? It's a matter of choice. He's using the very thing to destroy people that, if used for righteous purposes, could protect them.
Right? Yeah, here's the next level. Here's the next level thought too. Yeah,
somebody could easily wake up and go and pull and open up their scriptures and read, or turn on a laptop and go to inappropriate websites, right? It's the same mechanism. It's just boom, enemy's territory, and you've lost, right? You've lost power.
And you don't even,
he's not done.
You don't even have to go to a website. It's coming at you.
Yeah, right.
In every platform that you can think of, it's coming at you.
Yeah.
Give
no place for the enemy of our souls, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, he's not polite about it. We're too polite, man. One of the to lighten it up a bit, one of the worst places that you can have a booger on your face is at church. Why? Because everybody's so darn nice, right? And nobody, dude,
they won't call you on it.
You know what's crazy? Is I told my kids this. No kidding. I told my kids about this. I said, hey guys, call out your constructive criticism. Call out, help people out. You only love the people that you're willing to tell that they're wrong, right? No kidding. The next day, that was a Saturday. The next day we're at church, and I'm moving this chalkboard with another brother into another room, and he has the meanest hanger, and I'm just like, no way, like, are you kidding? And I was like, hey bro, hey, you got, I'm sorry man, but you got, it wasn't a big deal. But dude, that little thing is what I'm talking about being polite, right? It's not a big deal, but how messed up is it for that guy to walk around with that thing on his face the whole time, right? Why is it that church should be the best place to go with a booger on your face, but it isn't, because we're too polite about the things that we do.
Yeah.
So Carlos, can I ask if we were in person, I wouldn't ask because you look pretty strong and this might be a punch in the face. Did anybody along the way over the last couple of years rattle your face mask and say, hey?
Yeah. A ton. So it wasn't just one of the coolest questions you guys are supposed to ask. Mount Rushmore.
The document's a sham.
Mount Rushmore. Right? You guys are off script. How am I supposed to do this? Mount Rushmore. Man, that was tough, right? Mom was easy because she was it. I was the oldest of 5, single mom, dude, right? And so
shout out to single moms. Shout out to single moms, single dads. Doing
what's crazy though? You know what's crazy though is I can only say this because I'm a product of it, right? That sucks, man. We might give a shout out, but don't get it twisted. That sucks.
It's not designed that way.
I didn't deserve that. I love my mom, dude. I mean, it was her birthday 2 days ago. I love my mom, right? I didn't deserve that, and neither did she, right? And that's the problem, right? Is that's what Paul Harvey was talking about, is the disintegration of the family and what that does. Anyway, so I think that it's gosh, man, I lost my train of thought.
You got mom on Mount Rushmore, man.
Mount Rushmore, yeah. So
somebody rattled your cage, and I'm assuming that person's on your Mount Rushmore.
I was always chasing I was always looking for an example. And I never had one that I could point to, just one, at least in the beginning. And so I had a bunch of examples, and you guys have talked about this. I had a ton of examples, an overwhelming amount of examples of what not to do. So that's what I had to go off of, right? I had to go off of everybody who didn't make the Mount Rushmore cut, and create. Honestly, that's what that was my motivation behind what Wendy and I did. Is we wanted to prove that it could be done, right? 2 15-year-old kids get pregnant. I didn't have anything going for me, man. I was a bum, right? And I wanted to prove that it could be done, right? And so I think that over the course of that struggle, I was lucky to have a ton of people rattling my cage in a way, because I was always watching and seeing, oh man, I can't do that. I can't do that. I got to make sure I don't do that. And so I was always being rattled, not because of what what was wrong with me, but what was wrong with them. Not that I didn't have anything wrong. I'm just saying that's how I got to where I am. Is I watched a bunch of people messing up, and I was like, nope, that was a challenge. Oh, really? Oh, it can't be done. Oh, we can't do this. Okay. Let me show you that it can be done. Right. And so, but then along the way, 2 missionaries came along, everything happened. And then I started having those Mount Rushmore moments where people, good bishops. Tyler used to tell me, don't allow I loved it. There's a couple good lines from Andrew Johnson. So don't allow your peaks to be too distant, right? Your spiritual peaks, right? Well, and I just talked about this with a bunch of good friends. Don't allow them to be too like that, what's his name from that old show? My goodness. Married with Children. Dude, he was always going back to that high school football, right?
Al Bundy.
Al Bundy, yeah, there it is.
Right? And don't be that guy that's relishing like this thing that happened a long time ago, man. Like, I had the best mission. I didn't have a mission. I'm on one right now, homie. Like, I'm on one right now, and I did this thing yesterday, and it was, I'm not going to go around saying it. I'm just saying, for myself, when I take inventory, I hope that it's not too distant. And so Tyler was a Mount Rushmore moment.
Hold on, Tyler. There's no way I'm going to quote you in the show notes. I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
I'll slip it in there somehow,
Cool. And I had, that's where I had a lot. That's probably was my first real exposure to what men were, right? And don't get me wrong, they weren't what I thought I saw my first ward meeting. Dude, I felt like I was in a Leave It to Beaver episode, man. It was just so like the Cleaver, everybody was so perfect. And I was like, I don't belong. Right. But then what I discovered was, man, everybody's struggling, they're just doing it right. I think it was Sergio. He said, win right, or something like that. What was the title of that episode? Yeah, do it the right way. Right. They're all struggling. They're all doing, the grind, but they're doing it the right way. Right. They're rallying their resources. They're taking inventory, and they're doing it the right way, which is oftentimes not very convenient. It's oftentimes the hardest thing to do. And that's what people are doing. And that's when I started running into these Mount Rushmore moments of guys really rattling my cage and saying, hey, brother, when's the last time you did this? And if I can just throw out because I talked to him the other day. So I've only got 3 people on there. I'll add some more. I wanted 4, but I couldn't find another. because I wanted to eliminate guys that were younger than me, because there's a lot of guys that were younger than me that were like probably should be on that Mount Rushmore. But I was like, no, dude, I gotta. So it was my mom, Robert Snowden, and there's this elder missionary, and I was in a lot of places alone for training, for whatever reason. The military took me places, and I was alone, and I relied a lot on these elder missionaries oftentimes. And there's this elder missionary, they were the Walesbys, elder and sister Walesby, and Phil Walesby, he kept it real simple. And he said, and this is what rattled my cage the most, because everything could be, all my mistakes could come down to this one counsel. And he's like, hey, stick to the pros: prayer, repentance, obedience, service. Just keep it simple, man. Okay. Stick to the pros and you're going to be okay. And that is ultimately what I'm doing right now. I'm going back and I'm resetting, and I'm trying as best as I can to be brilliant on the basics, because I can't handle any more than that, man. I am so overwhelmed with how much, when we were at Rescue Swimmer School, when we walked into those locker rooms is when we did a lot of our talking, because we couldn't talk in front of the instructors. And it was like, we're always like, yeah, welcome to the suck. I'm in the suck, man. I don't have time for anything but the basics. And so that's what I'm doing. That's my reset, is to be as brilliant on the basics as I possibly can, so that Sebastian and Samantha and Stephanie and now Branson, who is my son-in-law, can see me in my struggle, because they all know it, because I'm open about it, because they need to know, and they can see what got me out of it. And at the end of the day, it's nothing complicated, man. It's nothing but a hug, right? The simplest thing. You know why you don't say anything to a guy that's going through what I'm going through? Because there's nothing you can say, dude. Just give him a hug, man. I don't remember who that was.
Dan Funk.
Was it Dan Funk? Okay. All right. That makes sense. That makes sense, because that guy was going through, he was going through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I think it's funny. The one of the lessons that I walked away from Dan Funk's episode on is like, so many times I might know you're going through it, brother, and my family might be kneeling down, and we're praying. Right. We're praying for you, but it's about doing something. It's not, hey, Heavenly Father, bless Carlos and Wendy. They're going through a tough spell. It's like, no, pray for them. Pray that we might be able to know how to help them.
I love
how to serve them, how to listen to them, how to, right? Like it's funny. I was listening to, had a meeting on Sunday, and this guy was talking about how when he was called as a stake president, the outgoing stake president was asked if he had any advice for the incoming guy. And he got up to the mic and said, go do something, darn it, and sat back down. Right? Yeah. That's it. That's like what you're saying, right? There's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of this. There's a lot of prayers, thoughts and prayers. But like, no, what are we doing for people? Right? What are we doing for people that are going through it? And it's a hug. It's a text. It's, hey, I'm thinking about you. Right?
It's that think outward, right?
Yeah. Think about other people. Yeah. Turn outward.
Right.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple, because oftentimes the reason we're not taking action is because we're so overwhelmed with, okay, what is the right thing to do? What is the perfect thing?
Paralysis by analysis, right? Just run the pros. Done. Prayer, repentance, obedience, service, call it good.
Obedience is what?
Basics.
Obedience is what? So one of the things that I'm gonna knock Dan Funk for is I'm gonna knock him a little bit, because I'm super jelly, because this dude had Mr. Funk, right? He said, oh, my dad, he was, and I'm not gonna knock him because I don't remember exactly his verbiage, so maybe I missed it. But it's almost like it's almost like maybe as a kid, right? He didn't, and I'm sure he realizes it now, but Mr. Funk did not become Mr. Funk overnight, right? it's that 101 hit, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Funk became Mr. Funk over an incredible amount of time. Remember, Dan was number 7. This dude had been through the grind already, right? And so I would say that you don't get to that level, right? Because he was worthy of that kind of revelation and that kind of prompting. It wasn't just like he just happened to, he and that confidence. That's the difference between a dude that didn't really know how to swim and the collegiate swimmer that quit, right? Is I figured out a way to have confidence in something that I was not a subject matter expert in at the time, right? And the reason I had confidence is because I put in the work, right? They went in there with these expectations of, whatever. And I was in there like knowing that I was behind and I had to do the work, right? Mr. Funk did a lot of work to get to where he was at, right? So I would say that, you know what? That's number 4 right there, Mr. Funk. I don't even know the guy. That story was crazy. I was like, yeah.
So Carlos, how do you honor mom now?
Oh man, I don't do it enough. I'm honoring her by gritting it out, man. That's one of my favorite terms is grit, because it's just, it gives you almost a visual of what it takes. Right. That's what she did her whole life on her own, back to back, just garbage. Like being the oldest was rough because I witnessed way too much. And we went through way too much. And the only person that could ever come close to the strength, perseverance, and grit that I witnessed in my mother is Wendy, really. And so the way I honor her is in every interaction that I have with other people. I am going through the absolute worst misery of my life, and I go to work. And right now I'm in military recruiting, right? Sales is really what it comes down to at the root of it. And I have people telling me, so they call me Dio. That's for short because my last name is pretty long. And so I say, Dio, dude, what, dude? Like, not because I ask a lot of people, especially at work, because it's an important thing that we're doing. And they're like, hey, not all of us can be as happy and motivated as you are, and I'm not going to open up to every person that tells me that, because geez, I don't have that kind of time. But that's how I honor my mother, right? Is I go out there and I make sure that I do my best. Let's be real. I do my best to make sure that everybody sees me on my game. And then if I'm going to cry or do something like that, I do that on my own, right? Or I do that here, right? Because I'm doing some of that here. This is therapeutic for people, right. I'm sure sometimes when they're sharing this kind of stuff. Right. So, but I don't do it at work. And work could be in the mission field. It could be at actual work. It could be when I'm having a conversation with my son about what he's going to do next. When I'm, all these things, that's work. When I'm at work, game face, dude. That's how I honor my mother, is my game face, right? I love this thing. Michael Jordan, he was interviewed by a sportscaster one time, and it was like an off-season game, and this dude like crushed, right? And they're like, how do you, how do you do this? Like on a, why off-season game, you can get hurt, whatever. He's like, there's a kid out there that has never seen Michael Jordan play and will probably never get to see Michael Jordan play again. This is his one shot, right? There's a guy tomorrow that's going to cross paths with Tyler, Mike, Carlos, and he might never cross paths with you again. What face are you going to have? What what are you bringing to the table, right? Because that's your one shot, right? And so that is what my mother has given me, is the strength and perseverance to put my game face on when I got to get things done. Because that's what she did. She just got it done. She didn't do. I mean, it wasn't pretty. My mom's rough around the edges, man, but she got it done. She had, one of her, one of my brothers, my little brothers is he's on his way to being a doctor. The other one is out on deployment right now, serving his country. My sisters, I mean, she did it. She did it. She got it done. And she did not have time to show up with less than 100%. Right. So that's how I honor my mother. That's a long answer.
So Tyler, I feel we owe it to our listening audience for at least one Navy rescue story. Right? Like we got a Navy rescue swimmer, and all we're gonna do is talking about
all my buddies
in the pool
are gonna be laughing if they hear that.
No, we gotta go somewhere outside of a training pool. I don't know if you might have a disclaimer like federal government, armed services disclaimer. You can't talk about details.
It's so cool.
Things.
It's so cool to watch civilians think that we're that cool. We're not that cool.
Yeah.
Don't
burst
cool,
our bubbles, man.
Hey, let's go with it. I was sensing that in your guys' conversation with Brian too. He was getting a kick out of it too. Like, that guy's energetic, man. I want to meet that guy too.
Yeah, he's a ball of energy, man.
I'm actually getting the same vibe. Right? I'm thinking we should sell tickets for Carlos and Brian to just.
You see how we're all type A's too? Like the first all of us, same thing. Like, which military guys have they already talked to?
Yeah. Right.
So I'm sorry. Repeat the question because I got so caught up in
any amazing Navy rescue story that you could drop us.
Okay. That's why I forgot. Okay. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna give you the real deal. So, it was there is swimmers in the Navy. So I'm a Navy rescue swimmer, right? The guys that are getting it done more often than not are in the Coast Guard. I'll be real with you. I'm not, and I'm in Navy recruiting. I'm not trying to, but they're the guys that are doing it a lot more often, right? Our technology is such that there's not a lot of planes going in the water anymore. They practically fly themselves, not to take away from the pilots, but it's not happening a lot. So Guam was one of those places where we are involved a lot more with the community because there's no Coast Guard out there. And so we get a lot more action out there. That was what prompted me to take that stupid hinge and, and go out there. And so I was chasing that SAR. SAR is search and rescue. And so I was chasing it. And so I went out there and I remember it was actually Memorial Day. And we were out there, we were flying over the this funeral proceeding, and it was just like this great like little memorial, and we were flying over American flag, all this stuff. And it just so happens that good friend of mine, he's the captain, he was the boss, and he was in the pilot seat. And we were out there, and the reason I say that is because he's the one that has to approve it if we get called out on something. And so we get a call from the Guam Fire Department, and they come across a situation they can't handle, and so they ask us for help. And the weather's pretty rough, and there's a kid that got himself in a tough situation on a cliff line, and so we go out there. There's a lot of things that happen. throughout the actual recovery that were on edge and sketch and all that, and it was cool. I had a blast. We got it done, and we pulled the guy out, and we did the job. I'm gonna fast forward though to we're flying back, and I've got a young doc. So when we can, we'll have a corpsman with us to take care of. We half of our training is medical, but we're not on that level. Like the corpsman. The corpsmen are the guys that really can take care of people. And so this is a young guy, and he's motivated, and he's got this guy hooked up to all these freaking machines, and he's taking care of them. And I'm just like, I'm the old man in the helicopter in the back, and I'm like, hey, let's chill out a bit, right? And the situation's good. We calm down. We turn over to the ambulance, and I'm sitting there on the edge of the helicopter. We're spinning, and we've already turned the patient over to the ambulance, and the ambulance is driving away, and I'm sitting there, and it's hard for me to say, but I sat there and I watched this guy go away, and we took care of him. He's good, right? And I was like, man, like this wasn't worth it. What a terrible thing. Like I just got it done. I came out here to get it done. I helped this kid out, and our team, it's moment of success, supposedly, chasing after these things. And my thought is, man, because at that point things had already started to fall apart. And so that was my first thought. I'm sorry to take the wind out of you guys wanted something, hyped up and exciting.
No, I love that.
But let's stay real when we talk about our successes in life. They don't come without a sacrifice. So make sure that success is worth whatever sacrifice it's going to take. In my case, it was not, because there's a bunch of studly guys that could have done it just as well. I didn't have to be there. Right. I'm grateful that I was there, and that I was able to do what I needed to do. And I'm grateful for the team I had to get it done, but I didn't need to be that guy. Right. And my whole career, I was thinking, man, this is what's going to make me feel, and that was part of the problem, right? Is I was always chasing this, what it takes to be a man. What does it take to be a man? Right. Yes. I'll just cap it off with this. This was like, a couple days ago, 4 or 5 days ago. It's just me and Sam, and there's a lot of that now, just Sam and I, and poor kid. And we're watching a Netflix movie, and no kidding, like she timed it, and she got it on her phone too, because that's what kids do. 2 minutes into the movie, I'm bawling, right? Because this is a rough one, right? It's called The Starling. And it's it's funny, the main character is like a comedian, right? McCarthy. And it got me. 2 minutes in, I was ugly crying, dude. And she was like, oh my gosh, Dad, it's 2 minutes in. And my response, right? Because I was like a little bit like, dude, what the heck? I was like, hey, I jump out of helicopters, all right? Like, she's like, okay. And the first thing she does is like, hey, Mom, Dad was crying and he said he jumps out of helicopters. Like, so even without thinking, I'm thinking that's what it means to be a man. That's what it means to be tough. Mm-hmm. No, the tough stuff is the extraordinarily ordinary things. That's the tough stuff, right? Jumping out of a helicopter, shoot. I wish you guys could try it. It's really not that crazy.
We actually want to fly them.
Yeah, we
want to fly them.
Yeah, we think flying is on the list of things the guy should do.
It's all right. I hope none of my good friends that pilot these things are listening, but we like to say that they're just our taxi drivers. They take us to go get the job done. They get us there, and then we get it done. There's no pilots jumping out of helicopters. So
no, I love that. I love that idea, though, that realization that as you see that ambulance driving off, the thing you're chasing didn't give you what you thought it would give you, because that's a lot of us. Carlos.
You
Like
can
a
never get
lot
enough
of us.
You can never
are
get enough of
chasing-
what you don't need, right?
We're chasing houses, we're chasing cars, we're chasing salaries, titles, and in the end, when you get that thing, it's not enough. There's no satisfaction there. So it's on to the next thing, and it's on to the next thing. Instead of sitting down, taking inventory and saying, I need to be chasing what really matters, what's really going to be satisfying.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely.
So, love it. That took a spin. That took a little twist.
That was good. That was good. So Carlos, we have been man, we've been going for a little while now. And I'll be honest with you, like this has been, I could just keep going. I mean, I've loved the conversation, and
I have proof that you say that all the time, Tom.
I know, but
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
There's
No,
84.
like
I've said it at least 84 times, right?
I feel like there's some stones we haven't even touched.
Yeah,
we haven't
I
even
agree.
turned over.
I kind of feel like
that's strategic, Mike.
we've got a lot of work to do still, but I want to, I want to talk about our final question, right? We want to keep that one there for you. And we love the idea of George Bailey, right? We love the struggle. You talked about, his crappy things weren't even that bad, right? I mean, right at the
Come
end
on,
of it.
George.
Yeah, come on.
It's only
Suck it up,
$8,000.
Yeah, it's only $8,000. But given where you're at, given your experiences with a little bit of hindsight, what you've experienced, and a little bit of looking into the future, what does it mean to you to be considered the richest man in town?
So I went through all 15 questions and I answered 14. So I didn't answer this one. And I'll just say that ultimately what it means to me is having or surrounding myself, being among this caliber of people that can make a phone call at 20 or 9 o'clock at night and extend that that tender mercy to me. He didn't have a clue. He didn't have a clue that I needed it. I got dozens of text messages. I had lights installed, pipes fixed, doors replaced. My son, his first date, there's a good friend of mine, Ben Fisher, drove him down and got him his suit for that. There were so many times where I had a good friend come in and either swoop me up or fill in for me when I wasn't there. There's a book, it's called Raising a Modern Day Knight, and it talks about gathering men so that we can create that community that is required to build up the stripling warriors that it's going to require for us to get through this fight. And the only way we're going to do that is by taking inventory and being there for each other, and being able to say, I don't care where I am at in life. That's what I learned tonight. That's what I learned is it doesn't matter where I am in life, as long as I have somebody to reach down and get me through it, or help me get through it, help me remember who I am. And so that's the only thing I got going for me right now. You called me and you told me, hey man, yeah, because I asked you poignantly, like, hey, why are you inviting me on this show? And you said my family, essentially. My kids are great. My family's great. you actually specifically said, you and Wendy just, man, and you know what? It's okay, because the caliber of men that I find myself among is such that they'll take me as I am, man. And they're going to help me. They're going to help me when I need it, when I really need it. And that's what it means. That's what it means to be rich, and Clarence kind of referenced it, he said, hey, now I would just change the words a bit, cause failure it's like regret. I fail all the time, right? Failure is an ingredient to success. But what I don't have to do is I don't have to quit. That's something that's ingrained in us, in this training. Brian knows all too well. Kiefer knows all too well. I know there's some other military people that are on. You don't quit. You can fail, 100 times. But I'll tell you what, the only reason I didn't ring the bell sometimes was because I got that phone call that I needed, or I had that bishop that I needed at that moment. That's what it means to be rich, because it doesn't matter if I'm in the middle of bankruptcy, man. Dude, I've got friends, buddy, and so it's just about making sure that I'm taking inventory and I remember in that scene, there was this little dude that nobody notices that's counting all the money for George, we're not doing that enough.
Yeah.
Every person that comes on this show says, dude, I'm not on that level. I don't deserve to be here. But I think they leave the show realizing that they are pretty rich. They're pretty wealthy because of the company that they find themselves in. And so that to me is what it means to be the richest man in town.
I love the answer. It's 84 times. It's different every time. And I'll say this, I'm going to stick to my guns and say one of the reasons, my reasons for having you on have evolved since our conversation, but I love you. I love Wendy, and I love your kids, and you guys are great. And I'll say this as well. I appreciate you coming here tonight and lifting Mike and I up. That's been the real pleasure of it all. So it's been a blast, man.
84 episodes in, it's hard to keep saying we're going places that we've never gone, but truly in this episode, this conversation started in places that we've never started. And I love your answer there, Carlos, because if you remember the scene where the book is thrown into the basket, every time you hear a bell ring, an angel gets his wings, and they open up the book and it says, remember, no man is a failure who has friends. Yeah. And I just think that's a perfect capstone on our conversation tonight. And to honor Carlos, tomorrow at the Y, I'm going to jump in the pool and go swimming.
Yeah, man. Get it.
Wear my goggles.
One breath all the way to the end.
No.
Let's go.
No.
Come on.
No. Hey.
Chicken net. Let's go.
Don't do that.
No, let's just start with some baby steps. Brilliant at the basics.
There you go. There we go. Carlos, man, it's been a pleasure tonight. I mean, I love it, and I appreciate your candor and your transparency and your vulnerability tonight. It's been eye-opening for me, and
powerful.
I have a lot of notes that I took, and there's a lot of things I want to do to be more like Carlos, and I just I'm grateful for that. So
don't do that. So one thing that Carlos always had is a swim buddy. Every swimmer out there doesn't do anything without a swim buddy. So please don't go doing underwater without a swim buddy.
Who you got? Who you got, Mike?
I'm sure the lady,
some 80-year-old man in a Speedo that's going to be in the lane next to you, dude.
I'm sure the 84-year-old lady in the lane next to me will be just fine.
With the swim cap on. She's got it. Come on.
You guys are awesome.
It's been fun, man. We appreciate you. Have a good night. All right, man.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast. To my big brother, George, the richest man in town.